In this lesson we're going to be looking at the basic syntax of PHP. So you've made the decision to use PHP and now you want to know how to start actually writing it in your page. So let's go into our page editor here. We're using Dreamweaver and we're going to create a new PHP document. So we'll go for PHP here. Now when I save this page, Dreamweaver is quite clever. It knows that I'm going to be saving a PHP based page, so I'm going to go up to File and Save As, and I'm just going to call it Basic Syntax. Okay, now I could just hit save here and it will put the .php on the end, but I want to be extra sure and put .php. And also just bear in mind it depends what HTML editor or script editor you're using, for example Notepad, TextPad or anything like that. It doesn't always put the .php at the end, so you will need to be explicit. Sometimes I just do it as a matter of to be sure that it's saving as PHP. And it is important to realise, of course, if you're used to writing a HTML based page or ASP, something like that, you will have to change your pages to be .php, but once your server's all configured for it, they'll run through that server. So basic syntax.php, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, I'm going to flick across to my web browser here and just do a refresh, and then we have our basic syntax. So if I just run that, localhost Tuutes demo basic syntax.php, and of course we haven't got anything on the page right now, we haven't written anything into it. Now I'll flick across back to Dreamweaver. As I said, PHP is a supplementary language to HTML. So here we have our basic HTML layout, and if I just go into the body section, if I were to just type hello world and save that, of course when we flick across our browser that's what we're going to see, hello world. But that's not really what we're aiming for here. We want to start putting some PHP script in. So to define PHP script, we use the less than sign, question mark, PHP. That opens it. That's like an opening tag. Do a few character returns, and then question mark and a greater than sign. This tells the page basically that anything between these two tags is going to be PHP based code. Alright. Now one of the simplest things to do in PHP is what's called the echo statement, and that just prints something out to the screen. So in the same way we wrote hello world just now directly within the HTML, in PHP we would type the word echo, E-C-H-O, and then put whatever we want in, for example, double quotes. So we say echo hello world, and then close our double quotes, and in PHP every line must have a semicolon at the end. Okay, now you may see that there's a couple of other ways to write an echo statement. For example, you could have echo and then in single quotes, hello world, okay, single quotes, and of course you'll need your semicolon on the end. Or there's the method that I tend to use, which is echo, and then I open a bracket, and then in double quotes we put hello world. And so similar to the double quote one at the top, but it's surrounded in brackets and then a semicolon on the end. So three different ways, and it's personal preference really, whichever way works for you. There are pros and cons, for example between these two when you're pulling in variables as well, but we'll look at them in another tute when we deal with variables. Now I'm going to take out these top two lines. Again, this is my preferred method. So if I go ahead and save that page, so this should look the same as what we had just now. So if I go back to my PHP page, although I have noticed I've got a capital H there, so we should see that drop to a lowercase, refresh the page, and there we go. Now it's important to realise that if we view the page source through a browser, what we see is hello world, because PHP runs on the server, it doesn't run on the browser as such. So all of the PHP scripting is done before the page is served up. Okay, so we don't see any PHP tags or any PHP scripting. So to give you another example of that, in our PHP page, one thing we might want to do is comment. Commenting is a very useful thing to do, and I would highly encourage you to do that, specifically or especially when you're learning PHP, because often you will generate some code that you've just learned, but then you might go back to that in a week or two or a month or so, and you can't quite remember exactly what was going on there. So it's always handy to comment your code. In PHP, we just simply use two forward slashes, and then you would put your comment. So for example, this is a comment. Okay, now if I save that page and we'll go back to our browser and refresh, you'll see nothing on the page. And the great thing about PHP comments are that when you view the page source, again, you don't see those comment tags because everything is processed before the page gets served up. In comparison to a HTML comment, so for example, before our PHP tags, if I were to put in your standard HTML comment, so this is a HTML comment, and then close that off. You should be familiar with that if you've done any kind of HTML work. Save that, and we'll go back to our browser and run it. Again, we don't see anything on the actual page, but when we view the source, we do see the comment because it's running at the time the page is being generated. So that's a really useful thing in PHP. You can comment heavily within your page, but of course it doesn't show when people look at the source code. And people do look at your source code. Maybe they'll see something that looks quite nice on your site and they want to see how you've done it, or even they'll try and hack your site. They'll start looking at your source code and seeing how things are done. So comments in PHP are a very useful thing to do. So that's your basic syntax. Now, of course, I did say that PHP is a complementary language, and so it's not always appropriate to have code split across various lines. You might want to do it inline. So for example, let's take out all this information here. So if we wanted to say, for example, today is a sunny day. Okay, so that's just standard HTML. We don't really want to split that across any more lines, but let's say, for example, the word sunny was being derived from a variable, and based on the weather of that day, it might say today is a cloudy day, or it might say today is a rainy day. Okay, so we don't necessarily want to have to change that manually each time. We want it based on a variable. So we want to write some inline code. Okay, now we're going to look at how to create variables in another tute on variables, but if I just wanted to put some inline PHP here, I could take out sunny and I open my PHP tag. So $sign question mark PHP. I use my echo statement, echo, and we'd say sunny. We'll close our double quote, close our bracket, a semicolon on the end, remember, and then question mark and greater than. Now, it is important to note that we do have to put a semicolon at the end, even though it's technically not the end of the line. The end of the line's over here, just to the right of day, but it's the end of the line in terms of PHP. So that's the PHP block of code. That's our statement within the code, and so we have to put a semicolon on the end. Alright, so let's just save that page. So we should have today is a sunny day. Okay, and once again we'll take a look at the source code of that. And as far as the web browser is concerned, it's just one piece of HTML text. Alright. Now, of course, you wouldn't do this in reality. You're not going to go to the time and effort of putting PHP code in there just to say the word sunny. But like I say, if it was being pulled from a variable, so for example, before our page started, again, this is going to be looked at in more detail in the variables tute, but if we decided to have a variable called weather, and that variable was going to give a value of sunny, what we could do down here is, with our echo statement, instead of echoing some text out, we could echo the actual variable above. Alright, so today is a, and then we're saying echo out what the variable weather is. Don't worry too much about this syntax at the moment, because we're going to be looking at that, as I say, when we look at variables. But just to show you how that works, flick back to our browser. So we still see that today is a sunny day, but when we view the source, we don't see any PHP at the top before the HTML begins, and we don't see any PHP within the line itself. It's all hidden. Okay, so that's your basic that's your basic PHP syntax. And like I say, just important to remember that PHP is a supplementary language, and although you will inevitably create pages that run PHP script on their own without any HTML in, most of the time it will be to put bits into HTML pages. Alright, so hope you enjoyed that and understand a little bit more about the basic PHP syntax. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. Just email us at hello@tuutes.com, or you can go to our website at www.tuutes.com and look at the contact page. Okay, thanks for watching.